This movie opens with Nell getting ready for the Christmas celebration tonight. She and her husband, Simon, invite their old school friends to their house to celebrate Christmas together. They are Alex, Bella, Tony, Sandra, and James. Tony and Sandra bring their daughter named Kitty, while James brings along his partner named Sophie. While James is on his way, Nell and Simon are busy with the preparations at home. While Nell is busy arranging this and that, Simon is busy chasing the chickens out of their yard. Their first child named Art helps cut the vegetables. Unfortunately, his finger is cut because one of the chickens that his father chased jumped and hit the window. Art curses and immediately calls his mother. Nell is still busy, goes downstairs and gives first aid. She takes a tissue, gives saliva, and it's done. Simon then comes in and tells that one of their chickens doesn't want to leave the yard. What is Simon's purpose of chasing his own chickens? It is intended to make the chickens die eaten by foxes, because tomorrow all living things will die, and it would be better if the chickens did not die in pain. Nell and her family, including their friends who will come, are well aware that this Christmas will be their last Christmas. Tomorrow, according to predictions, it will be their turn to face a disaster that is sweeping the earth. But instead of backing down, afraid that death is near, they all decide to make the most of their time with joy. In short, they don't have much time because their friends will be here soon, so they rush everything until it's done. Simon tells his twins who have been playing to take a bath. They are named Thomas and Hardy. Simon asks them not to be busy playing gadgets later, and the most important thing is to ask them to avoid debating with Kitty, because Kitty is an annoying child. But Kitty and her parents arrive first. Kitty goes straight in and gives flowers that she says Sandra took from a neighbor's house. Kitty also demands sticky toffee pudding that her mother said Nell would prepare, but unfortunately Nell forgot. Sandra also just came in and showed off her new outfit, immediately called Tony and told him to get some sticky toffee pudding at the supermarket nearby. After Tony and Sandra, it's Alex and Bella's turn to get to the house. They are a lesbian couple. Bella asks Nell if Kitty is also coming and jokes about Sandra and Tony who should have killed Kitty earlier. On the other hand, Kitty, who has been looking for Art from earlier, randomly enters the bathroom and sees Thomas and Hardy there. Thomas and Hardy drive her away, but Kitty insists on watching them bathe. Suddenly, Art comes and tells Kitty to shut up while cursing. Then Kitty complains to her mother. Sandra tells Art to apologize, but Art refuses and complains to his mother. But he doesn't get support from Nell, who instead asks him to apologize to Kitty. Outside the house, James and Sophie have arrived. They are the last ones. They are greeted by Nell and Sandra. Sandra always teases Sophie, who is considered too young for James, and also about Sophie's suspicion of being anorexic. But before Sophie realizes it, Sandra hugs James warmly and calls him a handsome prince. Sandra hugs him quite long, making the situation awkward, especially for Sophie. But Nell managed to overcome it by immediately taking them inside. Not long after, Tony and Simon came home with sticky toffee pudding for Kitty. They were greeted by Sandra, who also told them that James and Sophie were arguing. In the kitchen, James and Sophie had a small argument about something. Sophie questioned why James hid something from his friends. James insisted not to say because tomorrow was already hard enough for his friends. Plus, his friends might not understand. Art eavesdropped on their conversation and was used by James as an opportunity to escape from the debate that might have no end. In short, dinner arrived. Before starting, Simon was asked to lead the prayer and give thanks, even though he was not a believer. When Simon ran out of words, Nell helped to continue. Nell was grateful for her friends, grateful for her children, and grateful for the togetherness they had built. After that, dinner began. While eating, they talked about the Queen of England. Tony joked that the Queen might be hiding in a bunker full of dog food. Art denied the theory because the Queen looked sad when she gave a speech on TV this morning. Kitty then joined the argument that the Queen was old, so it didn't matter if she died. Hearing that, Sophie was not happy. She said it was wrong if in this situation people could die just because they were old. She also added that parents should teach their children to respect the elderly more. This made the situation at the table a little tense. Alex tried to ease the tension by saying that maybe Kitty didn't mean it. However, Sandra attacked Alex by saying that she wouldn't understand, because she wasn't a parent. This was clearly not something Bella wanted to hear. Not wanting this to drag on, Tony asked Sandra to stop. But Sophie didn't stop. She kept questioning why the kids could think like that. Only then did the debate stop after Nell asked them not to argue. Even so, Tony and Sandra were curious why Sophie was sensitive about this. James said it was because yesterday Sophie had a bad day. Even though Simon forbade it, Sophie still told about the horrible incident related to the disaster. Sophie told about her family who had faced the toxic gas storm disaster first. Before Sophie spoke further, Simon cut it off and immediately changed the subject, because the horror was clearly not something they wanted to hear. Simon also asked everyone to raise their glasses for Nell, who had served everything. However, Sophie still interrupted the conversation and said that parents should be honest with their children. Art denied and said that his mother was not lying because he had seen the news on TV. Then there was Kitty, who suddenly put forward a conspiracy theory that this was all the work of Russia. But Art denied, saying that this was pure anger from the earth that vomited all the garbage that humans threw away into the form of a toxic gas disaster. Kitty still insisted on the conspiracy that she believed, but she said it was not too bad because at least the British government had a better solution. The debate continued as Art began to talk about morals. He believed that what the government did to deal with the disaster was not a plan, but the disaster itself. In short, dinner was over. In his room, Art looks again at the impact of the toxic gas disaster that is sweeping the earth through the government website. On the website, the government provides a way out, which is by drinking a pill called Exit Pill that will kill painlessly. This is the same pill that his family and friends will drink tomorrow morning. The next scene shows Nell and Sandra explaining to the children why they have to drink the pill. Sophie listens from behind, can't stand hearing all this and leaves, while the other children accept it casually. Art cries silently. Then we see the adult men talking about the pill in the greenhouse. James got it from the hospital because he is also a doctor. They will all drink this pill tomorrow morning before the toxic gas storm passes their house. But the problem now is that Sophie is pregnant, and she decides not to drink because technically it's like killing her own child. Tony interjected that it was a completely different thing. He said there was no way to escape the toxic gas storm. James also believed the same thing, but he couldn't do anything because Sophie's decision was final. Finally, Simon tried to ask James to make sure Sophie didn't influence the children because they wouldn't understand. After that was the gift opening event. Here, Kitty gets a doll from her father. Kitty is very happy to get this gift and hugs her father. Her mother also asks for a hug, but Kitty refuses on the grounds that Sandra used Kitty's future education money to buy luxury goods that wouldn't be used anyway because they would die tomorrow. Art, who was fed up, forced Kitty to hug her mother so she could quickly open these annoying gifts. However, Sandra scolded him, and Art got angry and threw his gifts. On the stairs, Art expressed all his complaints to his father. He said that this was something stupid, giving the children toys that they couldn't even play with. Simon could only apologize because he and Nell did this to make the children happy. Art then questioned the fate of the people who were not given the pill. They are the homeless and illegal immigrants who are legally not in England. Art wants to help them, but Simon says that's impossible. After that, they all have fun with fireworks. The scene continues with the adults reminiscing about their school days. Here, Sandra starts to bring up the fact that she used to love James. And surprisingly, James also admits that he used to love Sandra too. Everything changed when Sandra was with Tony, where James felt consumed by jealousy, making him hate Sandra, then hate himself. Tony was really confused to hear this and started to challenge James by calling him a loser. But the situation was controlled by Bella. She reminded that everyone had made mistakes, including Tony and Bella themselves, who apparently also had sex when they were still in school. This confession made the whole room as shocked as James's confession earlier. The difference is, this time Nell and Simon laughed out loud, because this was not something they thought ever happened. After nostalgia, they hugged. The scene then changes to show Art watching a show about the toxic gas storm, which is marked by the appearance of a medium-sized tornado that also carries toxic gas. Suddenly, Sophie opens the door and asks permission to enter. Art tells her about this and expresses that he can't stand all this. But suddenly Simon comes in and tells Art to call his grandmother. Meanwhile, Sandra chats with Bella. Sandra is afraid and begins to doubt the government. So is Bella, who actually didn't trust the government from the start. Bella accepts the pill because even if she survives, She doesn't want to live in a post-apocalyptic world. While Sandra has no choice but to believe it because the news has spread widely on television showing the terrible horror of the disaster. On the other hand, Nell's family makes a video call with the grandmother who is Nell's mother. They chat for a while until finally the vibration of the storm is felt by Nell's mother, aware that her death is near. She says goodbye to Simon and Nell. As soon as she makes sure the storm is in front of her eyes, Nell's mother immediately drinks the pill, and not long after the storm hits her house. Nell is really shocked by the fact that her mother died alone without anyone by her side. Simon calms her down that they have to make sure this incident doesn't affect their children's mental health. Then Art goes to James and Sophie's room to tell them that he won't drink the exit pill. James explains to him about the pain during the storm. Art argues that he is not afraid of pain and sticks to his decision not to drink the pill. James intends to report this to Nell and Simon, but Sophie prevents him. Art then expresses his suspicions to the government and the scientists. He argues that maybe the scientists made a mistake. He is also concerned about the people who die in agony. But according to James, life is unfair. They can't be helped. But Art makes James silent by saying that a doctor should be able to help people. The scene changes to show the appearance of the toxic gas storm that turns out to be unknowingly approaching the house. Still in Sophie's room, Art says that no one should give up. Sophie then tells Art that she is pregnant and will not drink the pill. When Nell comes in to look for Art, Art immediately tells his mother that he won't drink the pill and accompanies Sophie by his side. Nell is shocked and immediately calls Simon to remind him, but it's useless. Art insists on his decision not to drink the pill. He gives the idea to close the windows, make barricades, and wait until the storm passes. However, Nell says that the poison will spread through the air. Anything and anyone will be killed. Nell convinces Art that she and Simon have thought of many possibilities and the results are the same. All this has to be done for the sake of the family. But Art runs away from home because according to his logic, his family shouldn't force him to die. While Simon chases Art, Nell begins to feel something is wrong with the clouds above. In his escape, Art finds a car that is left on the side of the road. When Art approaches the car, at the same time a tornado appears behind him. In the car, Art finds everyone dead, including a baby that makes Art cry as hard as he can. Simon, who hears Art scream, immediately runs to the source of the sound and witnesses firsthand what his son saw. Feeling the storm might be near, Simon immediately takes Art home. Upon arriving home, Simon immediately asks the children to be taken to their respective rooms. Seeing Art cry, Simon looks shocked. Sophie and James try to help by taking Art upstairs. When they leave Art for a while, Art starts to have convulsions. Meanwhile, downstairs, Simon tells James what he saw earlier. This gives the conclusion that the storm came faster than expected. Realizing that death is near, James feels it's time to drink the exit pill. Finally, they say goodbye to each other and go to their respective families. Simon then enters the room and tells his wife and children that the time has come. From here, everything happens simultaneously. From James's side, he signals Sophie that the storm is near. He takes out the exit pill from his coat pocket and makes sure of one thing. James will only drink the pill if Sophie also drinks it, and vice versa. Finally, surprisingly, Sophie decides to drink the pill with James. On Bella's side, she finds that Alex is still drunk and not waking up. Because there is not enough time to wait for Alex to wake up, Bella immediately drinks the exit pill and gives it to Alex too. But after that, Alex wakes up and vomits the pill. Because she doesn't have a spare pill, Bella is forced to stab Alex with a knife. Not long after, the effect of the pill begins to react in Bella's body, and she dies, while Alex follows Bella and collapses from blood loss. On Tony and Sandra's side, they and Kitty have already taken the pill and lie down on the bed. However, they wake up again because they forget to say goodbye to Simon's family. Kitty also forgets her doll and goes to get it, but unfortunately for Tony and Sandra, because the pill starts to react. When Kitty returns to the room, Tony and Sandra are already dead. Kitty immediately goes back to the bed and hugs her mother until death takes her. And finally, from Simon and Nell's side, they fulfill their twins' request for Coca-Cola. But finally, everything is done and the pill is ready to drink. Simon gives each of his twins a pill, then gives one to Art. But Art does not respond. After that, they realize that Art has been contaminated by the toxic gas and bleeds from his eyes, nose, and ears. Witnessing the effects of the toxic gas firsthand, they all hurry to drink their pills. After that, they embrace each other on the bed. They make sure who dies first by constantly saying love to each other, until there is no sound left. They die just before the storm passes their house. The next morning, the outside is snowy. Not as scary as we imagined. The situation inside is more tragic. Everyone is pale and lifeless, including Simon and Nell's family. But suddenly Art's eyes open, indicating that Art is still alive, and the movie ends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.